Yeah, so next slide, please. We can get started with today's event. I'm the chairman, Davide Previti. We've got an amazing panel here. I'll let everyone do their introduction after, but just to kind of introduce everyone, we got Mark Lynn from Stockport Metropolitan Borough Council, Steve Pilling, who's hospitality entrepreneur. You probably went to one of the restaurants in the Heatons if you're living around the area here. Jodie Flannery from EcoMe, Graham Hayes from MMU, and Stephen Dutson from CAS Renewables. But I'll hand over to Mark first of all, so I'll let everyone kind of introduce who they are, what they do, and how they fit within the overall theme of the talk today around business and climate action. So over to you, Mark.
Thank you very much, and thank you very much for the invitation. It's an incredibly impressive event, so I'm very grateful for the chance to come and tell you a little bit about what Stockport Council's doing. I'm hoping my slides will be coming up on the screen, so if I could have the first slide up, please. Thank you. While we're waiting for that, just wanted to give you a little bit. Are the slides up now? Sorry, David. Are they there now? I can't see them.
I think they should be coming up now.
Okay, yeah. Brilliant. Thank you. That's me. Yeah, I'm the Director of Place Management at the council, and I'm also the person that when the council declared a climate emergency back in March 2019 and committed to developing a 5-year environment plan and to achieve carbon neutrality by 2038, they identified me as the person that needed to work with colleagues and work with partners outside of the council to develop the plan. As you can see, I'm assuming that the audience knows all this, so I won't go through the detail of why we need to deliver climate change, but you can see that there. But I was responsible for developing the plan. And I'm really pleased, it's very good timing this, because on Thursday this week, and you can go online and have a look at the plan in greater details. Thursday, just gone, the council approved the plan. It would have been approved at the start of April, but COVID, I'm afraid, got in the way. But we have now produced Stockport Climate Action now, Stockport CAN, which is our climate action plan. Next slide, please. So, as we were developing our plan to achieve neutrality by 2038, we decided we needed to know a little bit. We haven't really got that level of expertise within the council to understand exactly what's causing the problems, or in enough detail to develop a plan. So we commissioned a company called Anthesis, and they've worked with the Tyndall Centre. And they're very much one of the partners that developed the scatter model, which I'll talk about in a moment. It's on the next slide. But in effect, that was showing us how much carbon we need to reduce, carbon emissions need to be reduced by in Stockport if we are going to achieve carbon neutrality by 2038. And more to the point, reminding us that 2038 in a way is it's a notional date. And what we mustn't do is carry on until 2038 and then suddenly reduce our carbon. What we need to do is have that major reduction now and gradually taper off to 2038 rather than use up what Anthesis and the Tyndall Centre call our carbon budget. So if you can show the next slide, please. So this graph here, many of you may have seen it. But in effect, what that shows is that shaded area is the shaded grey area is the amount of carbon that we can emit over the next 2 years if we're going to stay within the 1.5 degree heating of the planet. And if you look at that massive drop in a handful of years, in fact, by 2025, you can see that we need to get down from around about about a sixth of the carbon that's been emitted in 2015. And bear in mind that this piece of work was done a few years ago. We're now 5 years on, I think we probably would all recognise that we haven't made the amount of progress that we need to make between 2015 and 2020. So that pushes the graph across, and we've got to massively accelerate what we do. And obviously what Anthesis told us was the list on the right, the things that we can do if we're going to play our role. Next slide, please. So our response is very much around recognising that, yes, we have to play a major role, but as a council, we are only, and Anthesis calculation showed this, that we're only responsible for 5% of the carbon emissions within the borough in terms of what we directly do on a day-to-day basis. And obviously, if Stockport as a borough is going to play its role, residents and businesses need to want to change their behaviours, and our role is very much about putting in place the conditions that enable people to make those changes. But we can only do that if we're credible, and we're credible and sincere in what we're trying to do. So we took the view that what we would very much do is aim to reduce carbon emissions within our portfolio of council buildings. So that's where council offices, council housing, obviously our vehicles and stock, and the things you see there, improving the natural environment. And we have to focus on those things and make major reductions in order that we can be a credible voice and a credible force for good within the borough when talking about climate change. Otherwise, people will say, well, hang on a minute, well, it's all very well you trying to persuade us to change our behaviour, but what about your buildings? They lack energy efficiency, or your bin wagons that are diesel and do about 3 miles to the gallon, and they do roughly that kind of amount of mileage, churning out fumes. We've got to change the way we do things. We've got to be completely radical. And we have to put in place an infrastructure to create opportunities for people to change so that they can move to active travel, they can walk and cycle more than they do, and they can use public transport less than cars. And as I said before, the plan was not just, I wrote this before Thursday night came and went, but the plan has now been signed off. And the good thing about it in Stockport, which is a hung council, we've got unanimity. It's cross-party support for Stockport Camp. Next slide, please. For me, this is the most critical element of our plan. So whilst we've got detail, and if you've read the plan that was submitted at the council on Thursday, you can see all the different actions we're doing. And I'm sure some of you'll say it's not fast. Many of you'll think it's not fast enough, it's not enough. And I put my hands up. We need to do more. There's a real sense of direction there, but actually at the heart of our plan is a change of culture from carbon literacy being compulsory for all members of staff now it's been signed off, to all our major decisions having environmental impact assessments. And being a little bit geeky, I'm really quite excited about our new financial appraisal model. What we've tried to do with Anthesis is develop an approach where we can quantify carbon so that the borough treasurer, when making a decision about, say, town hall refurbishment, when he considers different options, he can, with his value for money hat on, still recommend a more expensive option if that delivers carbon reductions at a greater scale than another option, because we've got a financial model that can identify the cost of carbon in all our decisions. And underscoring all this, we've committed to producing an annual report that will go back to our full council as well as scrutiny to show how well we're doing against the plan, what we're delivering, and hold us to account. Are we moving in the right direction? And I think this cultural shift is a really, really important thing that will underscore all that we do. We're putting climate front and centre of all our decision making. That's a massive shift that I don't think should be underestimated, and with cross-party support, which is really, really important. Next slide, please. Obviously, we would have liked to have done a lot more consultation. We have consulted on it, but electronically. We've done some events, like we've spoken to young people, youth council, but we wanted to hold a climate summit and we wanted to hold a youth forum this summer, and we've just not been able to do that for obvious reasons. We will do that. We will try and find a way around it, and we're very much believe that, you know, our plan's a live document. It's not a finite thing. We've not been and done it and here's the plan, this is all we're ever going to do. We'll keep improving it. We'll keep listening to the community. We'll keep engaging the community. And hopefully when we come out of COVID, we can do a lot more. We can do it a lot better in the future. Next slide, please. And now I'd like to hand you over to Steve Pilling, who's going to talk about, I guess, his perspective from as a restaurateur in the Heatons. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mark. Thanks for that. And it's great to be a part of SMBC and all these wonderful initiatives. I'm involved with several hospitality businesses around, and we've got a great workforce, some 200 plus people now. And I'm really happy to report that they're all keen to get involved in all these initiatives. I've got a little list that I've been asked to prepare to tell you what we do, and more importantly, what we're heading towards doing as well in the future. It's quite a long list actually, so I'll start now. The top of this list is all our coffee is used and bought ethically, sourced from fair trade and rainforest friendly suppliers, and then that's then saved once the coffee is made, and we use that for composting. We reuse all our oil in every establishment is sent away for processing for a secondary form of energy. From the sites where we do takeaways, 100% are all now recyclable takeaway and compostable. We do not use single-use straws. That was one of the first things all the team decided not to do early last year. All the waste collections in Stockport are actually completely compliant with national standards, which is great, and their energy use from the tips is fantastic and moving in the right direction. A new initiative we have started is we've got a site in Disbury called the Mad Giant, and it's 100% recyclability from everything that people eat with and drink out of. Is all recyclable. All our chefs are encouraged to buy locally grown and sourced produce, which isn't easy. I mean, from example, our chickens would maybe come from Preston and the Trough of Bowland, and that's a 50-60 mile round trip. But to counter that, a lot of our chefs now are really keen to get into home growing. And that's one of our next initiatives when we get to steadier waters post-COVID. All the stuff we do use in the businesses are signed up to a refill scheme, so that saves packaging. And we have a very strong CSR element to our business, and we've been doing this for 25 years now, since 1995. So much so that we did get complimented by Nelson Mandela himself for some of the stuff we do when we did it in Salford. But so for the food that we would waste if we didn't use it all, we do reprocess that for hostels, feeding people in hostels, veterans, training veterans, and homeless people. Currently, there's a very big demand in domestic abuse hostels, so it's very satisfying to make food and send it out to those. We have suppliers that produce biodynamical wines for us. And also the team tried to buy, where possible, in bulk to limit the wrapping on all the produce. We do employ local people wherever possible, and that reduces a lot of travel. And we recycle all our glass, card, and food, as discussed in CSR. That's a lot of what we do. A lot of what we're going to do is as follows. We're looking now into getting some electric cars for delivering our products on the takeaway side. We've employed someone for an annual environmental audit for water, electric, conservation, etc. When we do have a new site now, we do make sure that we have water management systems for urinals and the toilets, etc. And we are now converting our sites to LED bulbs, which is actually quite expensive because a lot of fittings, you need to change the whole fittings as well. And a brand new one is we've been in talks with one of our international brewers to brew and buy beer from their new solar beer production hut, which is very exciting. And last but not least is there is a very interesting thing on the table where the chefs can put anything that is biodegradable into a bath where it will dissolve, and once it is dissolved you can let that go into the system, so you don't actually have any landfill, etc. So that's a long list. It's only going to get longer, and I'd now like to hand you over to Jodie Flannery. The next slide, please.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you very much. So yeah, I'm Jodie Flannery, and I've lived and worked in the Heatons for over, well, several years now. I'm a mum of 2, and I have my own little business. I'm starting that up again at the moment. It's called EcoMe, and I'm sourcing and supplying more environmentally friendly products. One of the main products I'm focusing on are completely plastic-free paper cups that are completely compostable within your home composting system, and they compost in 8 weeks only, which is fantastic. Of course, they are single-use, but the single-use cups that are out there at the moment are lined with either plastic, obviously petroleum-based plastic, or they're lined with a plant plastic, which needs a special form of composting, which is an industrial form of composting that we don't have available to us in the area. And so it's really important for businesses, I think, to sort of know where these things are going. And if you're aware that your cups are not going to be causing litter and that kind of thing, then you know it's a weight off. But yeah, these cups are going to be available, and we're going to be able to put your business details on them. And I'm looking forward to speaking to businesses about those. I'm also, what I wanted to say out also was that since I've lived here, I've wanted to be a part of sustainable living in the Heatons. I just think they're a great group, and we're really lucky to have a group like that in the area, a community group that inspires action and change. And yeah, we need to be very, very grateful to them for setting this up, and may it continue. I'm also a member of the For Heatons Trading Association. So that's a group of businesses that are, you can get together, you can network. The For Heatons Traders promote whatever new things you have within your business, and also they have a very good Christmas party if you're in a small business and you don't have a team to have a Christmas party with. That's a good thing to note. But through my environmental interests and through my business and the For Heatons Traders link, I was asked to help set up the Kick the Plastic campaign in the area. So it started off as a For Heatons Traders initiative, where it actually started because a local lady contacted the For Heatons Traders and said, she found it much easier to go plastic free if she shopped locally. And of course, that's absolutely true. I've tried it when I've been doing Plastic Free July, and just on the ongoing things that you want to change within your own shopping, it definitely is easier to do that. And so obviously she was wondering whether the For Heatons Traders would like to promote that idea, and of course that's exactly what For Heatons Traders are all about, setting up setting up this initiative and supporting local businesses, and then in turn inspiring the community. So Kick the Plastic, we started off with a little poster that local businesses can just show their customers what they're doing. I think it's really important that businesses do that, even if it's just we'll never use plastic bags again, or we are now giving a 20% discount for if you bring in your reusable cups. Anything like that, you know, that you can say to your customers, we're doing that, and it will inspire them to change as well. We have also an Instagram page for the Pick the Plastic, so just at Pick the Plastic, and that is where we also promote what local businesses are doing, and you know, in turn then that inspires other businesses and obviously customers as well. We have now joined forces with the lovely people at the Women's Institute and Sustainable Living in the Heatons and a few other passionate business owners locally, and that you know, now we can get together. We've got a great team, and we are organising some nighttime events so that people can come and listen to some inspirational speakers and speak to each other, you know, have a good old chat about what they think the community can do, and it really does inspire people to come up with other ideas and what they think is going to be possible. But yeah, we've had speakers from speakers talking about microplastics to Shelley in the local Good Life. She's, you know, came in and spoke to us about how to do some waste-free shopping and the refill system that she's using. So yeah, we're enjoying that, and I think as soon as we can get another of those organised, better. We also have, because of our affiliation with Sustainable Living in the Heatons as well, we've come up with this recycling plastics in the Heatons. So it's a list of all the places that we know of that you can take your plastic waste. But obviously we would love to hear from anybody else. If you would like to be a drop-off point for other recyclables, or you just know one that isn't on the list already. So you can have a look at this at Sustainable Living in the Heatons and the For Heatons Traders website. On the For Heatons Traders website, you also have a dedicated page to the Pick the Plastic campaign, so you can go on there and see who we've had as speakers, and yeah, just to keep up with what other businesses are doing. So I'm, you know, looking forward to speaking to lots of businesses again, going out there and seeing what they're up to environmentally, promoting that for them, speaking to them about the products that they might want me to source and the products that I've got on offer as well. So yeah, that's me. So please get in touch if you need any help with that. So I'd like now to introduce you to Graham Hayes of the MMU. He's going to speak to you about what he's up to. Thank you.
Thanks, Jodie, and hi everyone. My name's Graham Hayes. I'm a researcher at Manchester Metropolitan University, where I work in the field of sustainable business model innovation. So I work with businesses of all different sizes to understand what they do, how they do it, why they do it, and how they can look at innovation. So how they can try to, what I call, do well by doing good. So do well economically whilst doing good for society and for the planet. And for that, I've developed a lot of frameworks through my research that I've used with businesses of all sorts of different sizes, so big multinational retailers down to small SMEs. And SMEs are really what my passion is in, because when you think about it, SMEs really are the core of every community. They employ more people than multinational organisations. So they've got a real capacity to make a huge difference in the world that we live in, especially in terms of sustainability. But they also obviously don't have the same resources as, say, a large supermarket or something like that. So I really love to work with small businesses like that, which is part of the reason why I'm here today, to meet some of the local businesses in the area. If you go on to the next slide, please. So just to give you some little introduction of some of the work I've done and some of the organisations I've worked with. There's a little image at the bottom that shows some of the logos of some of those organisations in the last few years. But some of the bigger projects I've done in my PhD, I worked with a big airport retailer to look at the carbon impact of the products that you buy in an airport, because obviously everything you buy in an airport pretty much ends up going on an airplane, which makes airplanes weigh more, which means that they burn more fuel. So we worked at what that impact was for the organisation, and on a global level, we came up with some quite scary large numbers. And then we worked with that organisation to try to find new ways how they could deliver the same service, but without that extra weight, and through other initiatives as well. I'm also currently working on a project called Anima. This is about noise rather than sustainability, but we're working with airports from around Europe to try to understand how they can change the way they manage their business. So the way they operate the airport, to try to reduce noise for the benefit of local communities. And that's a key thing throughout this whole, I think throughout the whole thing today, is by listening to communities, working with communities. That's really the best way how you can understand how to solve a lot of environmental problems. And as somebody who lives in Heaton Norris, quite new to the area, I'm getting a lot of overflights at the moment, so I'm really quite passionate about that at the moment. I'm also working on a project called Reduces, which is another European project, and here we're looking at circular economy in Greater Manchester. So looking at how organisations can essentially close resource loops, so use less waste, recycle waste, try to maybe reuse the waste of other organisations. So we just published what we've called the status quo report, which reviews the current level of practice in the region. And we're now conducting a lot of case studies with organisations across the area, looking at how we can develop an action plan for Greater Manchester. So this will inform the region's ambitions to move towards circular economy in the future. I'm also collaborating with an organisation called the Good Design Studio, and we're a bunch of sort of like business designers and innovators. We've worked with businesses in all sorts of different sectors, trying to identify ways how they can become more efficient, reduce waste. And again, it's all about trying to do well economically whilst trying to do good for society, so responsible business. And we're based in the Heatons, and I'm really eager to work with businesses in the area. So if anybody would like to get in touch in that regard, or indeed would like to get in touch in terms of research, us researchers are always crying out for businesses to work with to try to help. So if anybody would like to maybe get involved in a research project in any way, then please do get in touch. Thank you. So I'll pass on now to Stephen from Cast Renewables.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you, Graham, for the introduction. Thank you, everybody, for taking the time out today to listen to me talk about renewable energy technologies, the actual equipment that can help you reduce your energy, therefore save money, therefore create carbon reductions. Cast Renewable Energies is a Stockport-based business. We specialise in energy consumption reduction, and we work with the residential sector, the commercial sector and the public sector. We're based at Stockport Business and Innovation Centre, which is in Reddish, but we're shortly moving to the town centre because that is the centre of activity and a lot of carbon reduction issues at the moment. And we'll be moving next to the produce hall, which Steve will know well. We focus on 8 technologies, things like heat pumps, solar energy generation, battery storage, electric vehicle charging, high volume, low speed destratification fans. And these are all part of a feasibility portfolio that we believe is essential in allowing informed decision making on the return on investment for any project. Whilst our focus has complementary products, they all create savings individually as a standalone item as well. But also important for Cast is education on how these technologies physically work. We've created a tech truck which takes the technologies to the consumers. We're able to demonstrate in real time solar generation and storage. The tech truck has solar panels on the roof, and that actually creates power for the whole truck, showing videos, running laptops, running installed equipment such as heat pumps. You can see the energy generation, you can see the storage, and you can actually see electric vehicle charging all at the same time from one truck. Now, because this is a mobile showroom and classroom environment, we're able to help consumers understand and demystify the technologies, but we're also helping to upskill students in the qualifications that are required to join the renewable energy industries. So gaining the right kind of tradesperson qualifications, but also if you're going to university, an understanding of the technologies. And finally, on products, we're working with Manchester Metropolitan University on the development and commercialisation of hydrogen. Hydrogen technology, and particularly green hydrogen, it's coming, but it's not a truly commercial offering yet, and it could well be up to 5 years away. But CAST is part of the programme to speed up the commercial hydrogen availability. We also work very closely with Stockport MBC and Mark's team, and recently supported them on a number of projects relating to SMBC property and the involvement of renewable energy developments. Mark is quite correct that the council represents only 5% of the borough's energy consumption, but we applaud them for their commitment to regeneration and the inclusion of renewable energy on 3 sizable projects that we're involved in within the borough. And that's a great example of the council collaborating with the private sector to ensure not only a return on investment, which is important, but also huge carbon savings. Now, on the commercial front, and where the SMEs are involved, we've recently completed a project with a very forward-thinking commercial company in SK4, Rollinson Knitwear, who've invested significantly in renewable technology, and in conjunction with CAST has just completed a solar array, which makes the company carbon neutral. The total project has led them to being awarded the B Corporation status, which is a worldwide recognised standard. Certified B Corporations are businesses that meet the highest standards of verified social and environmental performance, public transparency and legal accountability to balance profit and purpose. B Corps are accelerating a global culture shift to redefine success in business and build a more inclusive and sustainable economy. Society's most challenging problems cannot be solved by governments and non-profit companies alone. So the B Corp community work towards reducing inequality, lowering levels of poverty, healthier environments, stronger communities, and the creation of more high quality jobs with dignity and purpose. So by harnessing the power of businesses, B Corps use profits and growth as a means to greater end, positive impact for employees, communities and the environment. Now, CAST also works with individuals, as well as SMEs and public sector, on the renewable tech, and we're focused very much on ethical and transparent advice, which will result in energy saving, therefore carbon reduction, and therefore environmental improvement. So we're delighted to be working mainly in the Stockport Borough at the moment. We do have some projects on the go in the London area at the moment, which is quite interesting from a developer's point of view, in that they are subject to what's known as a carbon tax on things. So developers in the London area are now forced to include an amount of renewable energy technologies within their developments. Otherwise, planning permission rockets by well over 130% of normal planning costs. So our lobby would be at the moment that maybe we should be looking in Manchester potentially at a developer's carbon tax. You've probably all been recently watching the Manktopia series, and some great nuggets of information in there about sustainable tech and the affordability of housing. Our mantra is make housing affordable to live in. And there are plenty of opportunities at the moment for the government supporting investment in renewable technologies within a house. So, and properties. The renewable heat incentive for commercial properties pays you an incentive for over 20 years. But unless you know the numbers and unless you run the feasibility, you're not going to fully understand what your return on investment is going to be. And that's why CAST at the moment promotes doing feasibilities before you start on any project. So with that, I'll hand over to Davide, who's going to do the panel questions.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks for all your introductions. So we're now going to go into the panel discussion. So as I've seen a lot of questions coming in already through the Q&A. So for those of you who haven't submitted a question yet or would like to, just so you know, so you can just click on the Q&A and write a question, and I'm here with Marianne who will pick up your questions and feed them to the panel. So keep the questions coming. As well as that, obviously, you feel free to get involved in the chat as well if you want to comment on anything that's being said during the talk, or again, just to get involved in the session that way as well. So if you want to go to the next slide now, so we'll have the panel discussion. What I think will be what I think is kind of like the three main themes that are crossing over across the topic of businesses and climate action are kind of listed out here, so you can use these as kind of cues into maybe the type of questions that you would like to ask the panel. So the first one is around businesses of the future. What do you think they should look like? How do you think that we can change businesses and move them forward to become more sustainable? So that's the first one. Next slide. The other one is the big one. So in terms of leadership, we've talked about maybe the role of the council, but where else does leadership come from, and how do we ensure that it will help to to drive change? And finally, the topic of the audiences themselves. So we're talking about businesses, but how do businesses interact with their audiences? What do we need to do to engage the audiences in the fight for climate change to make sure that they're doing the right thing, essentially. So yeah, so kind of as I said, these are kind of just a few cues, so feel free to start your questions. I wanted to kick off the question with a specific one looking at kind of reshaping businesses. I was going to put this to Graham in the first term, but obviously if other people have any other ideas, please feel free to jump in. So I was just interested in terms of, we talked a bit about incentives. I know that there are some incentives that, as Stephen has talked about, are coming from the perspective of the council in terms of either kind of taxation and or incentives from a financial point of view to kind of make businesses change. But do you reckon that there are other types of incentives that are not reliant on those types of functions like the council to reshape businesses? What incentives are there for small and medium and large scale businesses to switch to more sustainable models in the short and long term?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, there's all sorts. There's lots of research that talks about this as well. So businesses that are more sustainable or responsible in general, just statistically do outperform rivals. And if you look even on the FTSE 100, the companies that have existed for the longest generally do tend to have a more responsible way of operating, because fundamentally, if you are more sustainable, you avoid risk in terms of your exposure to things like problems with supply chains or like rising prices on different things. You have more efficiency, so you have lower costs, so you're generally going to be able to make profits easier. And just in terms of enhancing your brand and your reputation and making people want to work with you and to use your products and services, it's really important, and it can have a huge impact in terms of attracting people. Even if sustainability isn't something that you would say that you care about or are interested in, research shows that people do tend to still use sustainable brands because it makes them feel good inherently and internally. So yeah, it's just beneficial in every way, really.
Thanks for that. That's anyone else kind of wanted to also jump on that? Maybe Steve, in terms of coming from the perspective of a business owner like you, what have you found that you've kind of done in terms of changing to that long list of things, any of those things that maybe some other business owners are maybe scared to take the step, but actually you found that in adopting, it's also impacted your businesses in a positive way?
Yeah, I think from a team morale point of view, it's really good. We have team meetings where everyone suggests things and we agree to go forward with it, and it emboldens that very positivity around the team, which then begats other things. It's it would be nice to know, I think, about knowing the consequences of what you've done and what you do and how that filters through. Like, for example, I personally go to one of the local Stockport tips where you can then put wood in one, cardboard in another, etc. And then as you're driving out, you can see they've recycled 42% of X, Y, and Z. And I feel great about that. And that message getting through to the population, I think would be a big pro if we could do something like that. Filtering through the results of the small things we do into the bigger picture would be a good solution.
Davide, we've got you on mute.
Apologies, yeah. Thanks. I was saying that's really interesting from the perspective of just the kind of moral incentive, which I think brings us nicely to more of kind of the audience aspect of things, because I feel like oftentimes the way that there's a lot of desire for people to become more sustainable and to do the right thing. Is just giving them the option to do so. So this one I'd like to kind of direct to Jody first, and then also to Mark, in terms of how do we ensure that that we're kind of interacting with audiences to shift their behaviors. For Jody, more from a perspective of how you've kind of interacted with the type of audiences that you work with, and then more from the council perspective, going back to that kind of divide between the 5% responsibility of the council that's direct, and the 95% which is kind of responsibility for the council to influence. So I'm going to go first with you, Jody, and then over to you, Mark, after that, if that's okay.
Thank you. Yeah, I think it is really important that people are aware what the businesses they buy off are doing. And I mean, Steve, what an amazing list of things that you are doing. It's incredible. And you know, I wasn't aware of that. And I think more people need to be aware of these things. So with regards to Kick the Plastic, it was just, you know, just even starting with the poster, it was just to allow businesses to promote what they're doing, and also that then inspires people to do more themselves. You know, and then the Instagram, obviously Instagram is very appealing at the moment, and with regards to the local businesses, the For Heatons traders, you know, whatever any of the traders post is then reposted by For Heatons traders. And, you know, if that's environmental at all, we can repost that as well, and that then gets out there. And I think also then, you know, I mean, Steve, you know, you may have written about these things and whatever, but, you know, if we were to have another Kick the Plastic event, you know, to actually list what companies are doing to the local community would be just perfect, because you're right, it makes you feel good. It you know, people will definitely come back and use your services, and yeah, it can only be a good thing. So I'm looking forward to promoting what people are doing. Thank you.
Shall I come in, David, now? Is that, you can nod rather than come off mute?
Yeah, that's
okay.
fine. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. I think this is the heart of what we've tried to do. We recognise that, you know, 5%, that's the figure that we've calculated is pretty small within the borough. And when you think that carbon emissions within the borough, roughly, crudely, a third, domestic properties, travel, commercial properties, you can see that there's a lot to go at. We want to kind of do our bit, be credible leaders, and sort of advocate for doing the right thing, and to encourage those people that want to do the right thing to join us. And so I met with Stephen. There's a environmental business group forum that's a lot of companies like Stephen's and other companies that want to do the right thing that are meeting together, and by meeting and coexisting together, they're learning from each other and inspiring each other, and that's great. And we'll see some big strides there with some of the things that we're doing in terms of new solar, or we're certainly we'll be converting some of our diesel vehicles into electric vehicles. We want to be transparent advocate of those kind of technologies, so that we will invite businesses, we will share the data we have, and we'll invite businesses to come and have a look at it, and we will provide, you know, our experiences, or share our experiences, so that they can, you know, hopefully be inspired to follow us, or maybe use some of our facilities. But I think, but obviously that's a smallish cohort of people that are committed, and we've got to go far beyond that. And one of the things I'm really keen on in terms of the way that we describe our climate change is that I want it to be ordinary people. I want it to look as normal as possible, and I'm really, so I kind of, every time any of my team wants to put something in a leaflet, a glossy that's got somebody in lycra on a bike and looks like they're an elite athlete, just get rid of it. I want somebody that looks like me, that's old and kind of, you know, just an ordinary person potter into the shops. Our language, the way we communicate this, we have to make sure that we're talking to everybody, and it isn't just seen as an elite's the wrong word, a pastime for those people that are really committed to this agenda. We've got to try and persuade a lot more people. My final point on this is, I think, you know, really to deliver this, we're going to need government policy and finance and fiscal changes, because to change the way that people travel, we're trying to do our bit. We're trying to encourage more cycle lanes, better crossings, so more people can walk and cycle to work, and we can improve public transport. But as somebody said to me on the chat and criticised some of the things we're doing, that you know, fundamentally we're as a society, we're over reliant on car, and that the steps we're making are baby steps to get away from that. To really deliver, we've got to make big leaps forward, and that will only come from if the government's determined. We're doing our bit, we're promoting, we're trying to advocate, we're trying to encourage a wider constituency, we want to lead on it, but to really deliver it needs government support as well.
So just on that, so for example, because I think transport is a big one, isn't it, as you mentioned, in terms of just changing the infrastructure of the council, does that need to come with a lot of kind of funding and policy from the government side, in terms of, you know, cycle lanes, other kind of aspect that will encourage just naturally the use of other forms of transport other than the car? Because I feel like Stockport at the moment is quite car kind of oriented, as you know, many other towns and cities in the UK. Does the government have a role in that?
Yeah, I think you can if you think about kind of our plan is about some of the things that we do, the way that we deliver services, so our buildings, our fleet, the empty the bins, the street cleaning, where you can build economic cases that say, if we invest here, we will reduce the ongoing revenue costs, and if we add a factor, say we're prepared to go a little bit further than what would be an economically sensible decision, we can justify investing in our properties. We've got a hell of a lot of housing. You know, we only own kind of, it's about 11% of the stock in Stockport. You know, there's an awful lot of homes that we don't have money to improve. We haven't got the money to improve cycling and walking infrastructure without bidding for it.
Yeah.
And you know, we're in a worse financial position now than we were 6 months ago, thanks to COVID. So that, you know, that there are financial tensions, but as I also referenced in one of my responses that there are small political tensions that the public, you know, if you look at what happened in Trafford recently with the cycle lane, they put the temporary cycle lane up, down quite a big stretch of the A56. And then when people were going back to school, because there was only single lanes for cars, there was congestion and there was public uproar, and the council have backed off. So we've got to win hearts and minds. You can't have political leadership that's disconnected from the public. So the public have to believe in these things and want to see these things happen. You can have political leadership and bring the public a little bit forward, but you can't be massively disconnected from the general population's view, else things won't happen. We've got a long way to go.
Thanks. Yeah, that's a really good point. I think we've got a question from we're going to pick up from the audience. I'm going to hand over to Marianne.
Hi everyone. This is a question from Judith, who, and I think this would be best directed to to Mark, but it's around refuse disposal. As Jodie mentioned, that some of the compostable cups, her ones can be composted domestically, and that other compostable cups need very specific conditions to break down. Is the council scheme able to break these down, or do they still need to be disposed of in the black bins? She also mentions it's hard to distinguish between true compostable products and those with a coat of greenwashing.
And I think the second half of the question is probably the most pertinent bit. I don't know is the truth about the first part. I'd have to kind of understand the breakdown, and I'm sure Jodie's right. I'm sure it can be done, but and our compostings at a very, very high heat. So if it can be done in an ordinary garden compost, it certainly could be done in ours. Assuming that that's the case, I think the problem that we have with our messages is that there are, I don't know, across GM, that nine authorities that share the same waste disposal authority. Wigan are excluded from it, but the other 9, so however many people that are 2 million, 2.5 million people, we have to keep our messages quite simple. And you can't say, well, yeah, if your coffee cup looks like this, or it's got this label, and you can compost it, but if it's like this, you need to put it in the black bin, because if the level of contamination we get in our recycling already, because people think, although we say it's plastic bottles only, we get yogurt pots put in it and meat plastic trays. Anything that slightly confuses the message, we wouldn't say, yeah, put compostable cups in the green waste. Clearly, the people listening on this, you probably can do, because if it's compostable, you could put it in there if you wanted to, yes. But it's not a message we would ever put out, while there are lots of coffee cups that can't be. And again, one of my responses to a question was, I was being asked about plastics, and some of the things that the supermarkets bill as recyclable patently aren't, because they've got 3 or 4 different plastic sources, maybe layered, and the amount of energy expended in separating the plastics in order to recycle it makes it an environmentally unfriendly thing to do. By the end of it, it costs us more for the environment with the energy than we gain from recycling. So we try and keep the message simple and straightforward, and we wouldn't want the variant to start saying, yeah, put these in there. Sorry, Jodie, you want to come in, and I'm going to chair this moment. And Jodie, you answer you come back to me.
No, that's absolutely right, and I've already spoken about the council about this kind of compostable stuff, and the food waste composting that's done at the moment is a completely different kind of composting technique to the one needed to break down the plant plastics and things like that are used within compostable products. So, I mean, yeah, it is done, but it isn't available to this area at the moment, and it's quite a distance. The one place that's closest to us is quite a distance away. So, I mean, this was one thing that I wanted to discuss, that perhaps in other cities they've arranged a collection for certain compostable products that can go to the right place, and it can be disposed of in the correct way. But it's just a shame, I suppose, because people are making great efforts, aren't they, to use compostable things, and it's just we need to then be able to dispose them in the correct way. So I just wanted to say that. But yeah, I've been talking to the council about that already.
I'm aware we're kind of running a bit out of time. I just had one quick question for Stephen around kind of the possibility of adopting, by how you described, there's a lot of technologies, a lot of stuff that can be done, but the question is, how do local businesses, how do smaller businesses kind of cut through the jargon if you don't have maybe a specialized kind of either a team that does that or a specialized person that takes interest in that? How do you make those technology more available for like smaller businesses? Is that not a focus at the moment? Do they need to challenge that, or how does that work?
Do you want me to answer that?
You're on mute. Thank you.
Yeah, is that to me, Davida?
Sorry, that's to Stephen.
Okay.
Yeah, you're quite right. The demystifying of the technologies and taking the jargon out of it is so important. Hence my comments about taking a tech truck to the people. We actually parked it outside Rollinson's Knitwear for 2 days so that their employees could come in and have a look at these things. And we found that companies from all over Discovery Park came in to see the technologies. I think there's a demand for knowledge, but there's also a demand for education on these things. We have to bear in mind, like heat pumps, you tell people it's 1 kilowatt in and you get 4 kilowatts out, and it's almost like snake oil. It's like, no, that can't possibly be. But people should bear in mind, air source heat pumps have been around on the continent for over 35 years. They're a proven technology. It's just that in the UK, we've shied away from it for a number of reasons. And maybe the manufacturers of those products have hid their light under a bushel, that they're not very good at coming forward with how the technology works. I think there's been mis-selling in the past, things like solar panels for individuals finding that they've leased their roof to a company that they've got no idea how that happened. The technologies are improving all the time, so I guess it's up to companies like us in the private sector to take on the responsibility of education. And Mark is quite right. We had a very, very successful Stockport Sustainability Network meeting pre-lockdown, where over 65 businesses came along to the Robinson's Brewery Visitor Centre for presentations from Transport for Greater Manchester, from Sam at Where the Light Gets In, ourselves, and also the Carbon Literacy Network. Those businesses went away with far more information than they had previously, and I think we were able at that type of meeting to explain that, you know, you shouldn't be as frightened of the technologies, but you do need to understand it, and you need to understand that they all have a cost to them. None of this is free, but there are lots of ways out there of making it very cost effective to do.
Thanks. Yeah, as Ian said, more meetings are welcome at Robinson's Brewery. We had a question from Ian as well, in terms of, basically, I think paraphrasing is, should we be scared in terms of the graph that you've shown, Mark, in terms of where we are at now? I mean, you mentioned we're 5 years into that 10-year, at least that 10-year where it's supposed to have a very, very rapid decline in terms of CO2 emissions. Should we be concerned? Are there plans to kind of accelerate it if we're not at where we should be at the moment? And yeah, just quick point that yeah, just to if you can be quite brief with that, just because we're running out of time a bit.
I'm not giving any secrets away if I say that we're behind. You know, and I would imagine each day we're getting a little bit further behind where we need to be. We need to accelerate things. Yes, we're trying. We ain't got enough resources to accelerate at the rate that's required, and we're on. You know, as a council, it's 5%, a third travel, a third domestic properties, the third businesses. You think about that level of investment that's required to transform what we do and how we live.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks. That makes sense. And yeah, it's a question of, yeah, I think if going back to kind of the main points is like it's as much a question of, you know, being a leader as a council as it is a question of inspiring people to do the same, and obviously getting the government to back small businesses, the community, etc. That's kind of the where we need to be, really. We are kind of going into the last stretch of the meeting. So what we're gonna do now is that, in the same order as when we started, we just would like to put the question to each one of the panelists, which is, in your opinion, what would you like to see change specifically in the Heatons within the next 12 months? So what is the most pressing thing that you think should change in the next 12 months to have the biggest impact on towards, you know, tackling climate change? So I'm just going to go to you, Mark, first. What do you think is the priority for you? And if everyone can take 3 minutes, 3 to 4 minutes to answer this, please.
I think more of these kind of events, engaging with your fellow residents in the Heatons and encouraging people to live active lifestyles, but walking and cycling to do their shopping and going out and enjoying themselves. And the more we enjoy the environment, the more we spend outside, then hopefully the more we'll do on this agenda.
Thanks.
I don't have any more to say.
Thanks, Steve.
Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you, yeah.
Well, it's been a really interesting chat actually today, and I think one thing that's come over loud and clear for me is it's a bit like all those gold medals that Dave Brailsford won in the last Olympics, where he used the phrase the aggregation of marginal gains. And I think if everyone can do something, then we have a chance. And just going back to when I personally go to the tip and I see 42% has been recycled, I get a quite good feeling. So if in the next year we can get that to 52% and then 55% and stuff like that, and also make people feel good when they've left your premises in terms of how they've partaked in what they've done is good for the climate, good for the environment. And all those little things together will help, I'm sure. That's what's come over loud and clear for me today. And I think all the participants here will help in winning us some gold medals, hopefully.
Thanks for that. Jodie?
Yeah, well, I've discussed the major thing that was top of my list for what I'd like to see changing, and that would be that, you know, to try and organise a collection point or some kind of system so that the compostable products could be collected. That would be brilliant. I'm not sure whether that would be just maybe between businesses they could organise that, or something that maybe the council could think about, but they would probably be able to advise us nevertheless. So that having been discussed already, I have other things on the list, but I think the main thing for me when I've been trying to, you know, reduce my plastic waste and that kind of thing and be more environmental is just, you know, to continue shopping locally, to continue to speak to the people you buy the stuff off. You know, they will inspire you with the product that they're stocking. But also, you know, it's great for me to be able to go to a certain shop and say, could you get this in glass? Or, you know, have you got any of this that's made in England? Or, you know, just trying to reduce the carbon footprint of, you know, products that you buy. And then, you know, that makes a huge difference. I mean, and on another small thing you can do is just take your own tubs into businesses. And I mean, that's again on the plastic side of things, but, you know, it all adds up. And plastic production is a huge pollutant, and never, you know, not even thinking about the pollution that actual plastic causes. So anything that you can do in that way, that when I was taking tubs into local businesses and asking them to use my tubs rather than their plastic, you know, they were brilliant with me. So if most people can do that, that would be excellent. And then also, you know, if you start collecting your plastic waste, you realise what you need to change. So I think you know, you just, if you collect it all and then you start having to recycle at TerraCycle places, and you realise, I shouldn't really be buying that many crisps, or, you know, because you've got so many crisp packets to recycle. It just gives you an idea of what you can change personally, and obviously that all adds up. So so yeah, I think that would be a great change if people can just consider what they buy.
Yeah, and to everyone, you can recycle crisp packets, so just collect them.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's why everyone. You collect them.
Yeah, thank you. Graham, over to you for your priorities.
Yeah, well, I think this whole festival has been absolutely fantastic, and I think it'd be really great just to carry on the momentum from the whole last 2 weeks. So I think it'd be maybe really powerful for the whole area to maybe choose a specific area of action. And I mean, there's lots of stuff happening regarding plastics, as we've heard today, so maybe that could be the first one, but just to work as a whole area to try to tackle a certain issue, to sort of bring the community together, bring all the businesses together, make the people who live in the area aware of the issue, and then start to build from there. So perhaps each year there could be a new action focus or something like that, where we all work as a group to try to solve certain issues. I think that could be a really powerful way to like take this work further forward. And I think plastics would be absolutely perfect. So working by the work done by Sustainable Living and the Heatons and the Traders Association, I think that's absolutely fantastic. And if we can take that forward and maybe work on some sort of larger scale project, I think that would be absolutely great.
Thank you. Stephen?
Yeah, I mean, Jodie's quite right. If enough individuals take part, then we will get momentum. Forgive me, we tend to concentrate on the big ticket items, which is more of the carbon reductions, because those are the targets that we're talking about by 2038. And to get carbon reductions, we're going to have to look at microgeneration and encourage more people to seriously look at microgeneration and sustainable energy themselves. You know, at the end of the day, in the UK, we don't use coal anymore. There's zero energy production from coal. The nuclear program has stalled. Hitachi won't build anything else for us. It's too costly. 30% of our energy now comes from wind and solar, and we've got to continue growing that. Otherwise, we'll end up importing energy. And that's the last thing we want to do as far as pricing is concerned. So, you know, a residential home per year uses around 4.3 tons of carbon a year. So everybody can make a difference, certainly by doing some research, talking to the experts, talking to properly accredited tradespeople who work in the renewable energy sectors to help us create that climate change, because climate change is about reducing CO2 as much as anything. And that's in the supply chain, it's in waste, it's in transport. Mark's quite right, it's a huge, huge topic. And there are savings to be made across the board as long as we make the right decisions on those kind of savings. I encourage people to look at the Green Homes Grant, which is moving people away from gas heating to electrification of heating. Large grants, which are going to run out March next year. The government's only doing this for 6 months, but up to £5,000 towards replacing your gas central heating with an alternative. It also includes things like insulation, which is important in making our energy bills lower, but also therefore reducing carbon footprint. And I think anything that anybody does in the Heatons should report what they've done to the Climate Change Committee so that they can start publishing what the Heatons are actually doing, because enough individuals doing it will make a significant difference. So yeah, that's my pitch.
That's an amazing message to finish on. I think this whole festival is kind of about this particular thing. I know Sustainable Living and the Heatons, they've been around for a while, and we're all aware that there's a real sense of urgency, as everyone probably here knows. It's just a question of how do we inspire, how do we ensure that we keep having this pace to match the level of the current urgency, and what do we do? So really hope that today has been a good event to make everyone understand that there is a transition that's taking place, that you can help to drive that transition, whether you're a business, whether you're a consumer, or just even through your voice as a citizen, as a local citizen of the local area, and as a citizen of the UK, really. So we've had some great ideas as part of this session. So hope everyone's been inspired. Please, share this talk with everyone who you think that would benefit from it. Share with your friends, and of course, get involved in the rest of the festival. And if you've missed on an event, make sure you check out on SLH, on Sustainable Living in the Heatons website, to see what's happened in a festival. And there's been loads of amazing events taking place, so it's been so you can find them all there. They've all been recorded, so all the videos are available. We've got the links to social media there to subscribe, to know to get notified if anything else is happening around the area, around SLH and the Heatons Climate Festival. So on that note, I'd like to thank all the panelists for taking some time off in this amazing sunny day, and thanks to everyone else who's contributed with questions and joined the event. And I wish everyone an enjoyable rest of the day.